you look at it, we've come, it's quite a journey in our electoral process and in our democratic journey in this country. Is there any positives that we can take out of that election? Did we move at all in our electoral journey? Is there any success or progress that has been made so far, taking a lesson, a cue from the experience of the 25th of February?
Yes, for sure. There are some positive developments that were recorded. For instance, like the gentleman was saying earlier, the myth of structure, these political structures has been destroyed. Secondly, I mean, you know, whereby people have shown that we are the structure. The people are the structure ultimately. Secondly, young people have also shown this time around that we are going to determine the future of our country. Thirdly, you no longer have to be a money bag to contest election in Nigeria. Another development is that whereas the National Assembly, the Senate chambers, has been converted to a resting home for former governors, this time around, many of the governors lost their seats. I mean, they lost in the elections, and so they won't be able to go to the National Assembly. The other development is that sitting governors and a sitting president could not deliver, could not win their states for their political parties. So, in spite of the challenges, a number of positive developments have been recorded by our country. And of course, I think the most significant is the use of bimodal voter, systems, the accreditation through beavers, it has improved the accreditation of voter. The failure of INEC to upload the results in their central server is a major challenge. But I hope that will not be repeated when you are going to have the governorship and House of Assembly elections.
Because I was just going to ask you, for what INEC needs to, or the nation generally, on every stakeholders that will be part of that election of Saturday, what we need to work towards in, assuring that the election of the governorship and the State House of Assembly and the supplementary election for the National Assembly is way better than what we saw on the 25th of February. If there are a few things that you can tell INEC tonight, or security agencies, or any of the stakeholders, what would this be?
No, Sean, please, can you come again?
So, I was just going to, you were mentioning a few things that we cannot afford to go into the next election with, and I was going to follow up on that to say, can you give highlights? You met with the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State. A few of the infractions that you saw in the last election, a few of the positives that you said can be taken away from the last election. But going into the governorship election, it's another kettle of fish altogether. What should Nigerians be hoping for?
Yep.
what should INEC be doing to ensure that the governorship election of Saturday, the 18th of March, is near perfect?
Well, in the case of Lagos, we've met with the Commissioner of Police. It was a very good meeting to assure all voters in Lagos State that people are going to exercise their democratic right without any harassment or intimidation. Happily, the Inspector General of Police has already directed police commands in other states in the country to hold similar meetings with community leaders, the human rights community, the youths and faith-based organizations, so that we can have an election devoid of intimidation or harassment. We have also met with the REC, the Resident Electoral Commissioner in Lagos State, and he has assured us that the delay in the supply of electoral materials in certain areas on February 25th will not be repeated. I'm also in touch with the chairman of the INEC, Professor Yakubu Mahmoud Yakubu, I beg your pardon, who has also assured me that there will be a lot of improvement, in the forthcoming election. But for me, Nigerians have to be vigilant. Voters have to insist on their rights. Voters have to be furnished with the telephone numbers of security officers, the police, state security service officials, and so on and so forth, so that if there is any embarrassing situation, they can make calls and ensure that problems are attended to. So, but vigilance is very important on the part of voters.
Yeah. So, Mr. Falana,
also want to warn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you.
Some political leaders who took advantage of their official positions.
All right.
To harass voters and electoral officers.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you quickly before we go on our fourth break. There were questions that have been raised in respect of the section 60, 61, 62, 63, 64 of the electoral law, which is one of the infusion into the election laws, which says that the INEC has the powers, the statutory powers, to review an election result that is deemed to have been declared under duress, or that's deemed to have been declared and found out later on that such election results are fraudulent. And there are those who have accused INEC of lack of substantial compliance with that provision. Let me get your view on that based on what the scenarios that played out and brought to the notice of INEC.
I am aware, or rather I have confirmed, that in the case of Kano State, where a legislator was elected to put a gun, in the head of the returning officer, whereby he made the declaration and pronounced the legislator the winner of an election under duress. The returning officer is a professor. He sent a strongly worded petition to the INEC, and in the circumstance, INEC had no choice but to cancel the election, even though it had a return had been made, which was found to be fraudulent. I am not sure that that have been done in other cases, because it's now past 7 days after the election. So whoever didn't have his own petition treated in like manner will have to go to the tribunal.
I mean, this was one of the issues that was raised at the National Coalition Center when a few of the political parties came up and said they have issues with the coalition and the announcement of the result, and they wanted INEC to take a pause. And, you know, they alluded to these provisions of the review of the result. Do you see the relevance of that law in that respect?
Well, from the information at my disposal, INEC had a lot of complaints. And I was informed that if they have to address each and every one of them, there was going to be a crisis. And so, INEC, therefore, you know, has asked all those new complaints to head for the tribunals, where those who are alleged to have manipulated the results of the election will have to be sued together with INEC.
Looking ahead of the next Saturday election, you, in a statement, said that you're worried about the voter apathy that we saw. But in our past election, it's been a trend. How can we change that?
Well, we're expecting some improvement this time around because young people register to vote, many of them for the first time in their lives. But this time around, because of the excruciating monetary policy of the central bank, whereby many people who had registered in their home states could not travel, could not leave their places of work. In my office, not less than 3 lawyers informed me that they couldn't vote because they registered outside Lagos and they haven't transferred, you know, their votes. I mean, voting in Lagos. And you have many who were also challenged. You also had a situation where quite a number of undergraduates were disenfranchised because they had registered in their campuses, but NUC, for reasons best known to it, gave an illegal order that every undergraduate be asked to go home. The NUC has no such power, you know, because closing of schools, closure of universities is the business of the Senate and Council, I mean, Senate in particular, of every university. But, you know, the country is operating on the basis of impunity. So you have other factors that reduce the turnout of voters. Whereas in 2019 it was 35%, this time around it went down to 27%. And since the central bank has refused to comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court, it's going to be difficult to expect any improvement next Saturday.
INEC is promised that the IRF portal will work. But although the IPAC on the program yesterday said they smell a rat. And presidential election results are not being uploaded as of the time that it was promised, but other results in the National Assembly were being uploaded on the same portal which INEC has said has some glitches. In that respect, based on the promises, you said you've spoken to the INEC chairman. What are your views? Do you believe? Do you trust? Can we take the words of INEC for what it is right now, going into the next Saturday election?
Well, INEC has postponed the governorship and House of Assembly election by 1 week, so we will not expect any complaint this time around. You've taken a date, a week to reconfigure the system. You've also taken a day to put your house in order. In all respects. So Nigerians will not want to accept any excuse this time around. And I do hope that INEC will not make the mistake of, not uploading the results. But my honest view, having regards to the enormous cost spent on our elections, I do hope that at the end of the review, we are going to have our election conducted the same day. In other words, instead of giving me 3 ballot papers to tick 1 of 5, so that we can save a lot of money